Hey guys, tonight we step into the dazzling and complex world of Frederick II's Sixth Crusade, a crusade like no other, where the thunder of hooves and clash of swords are replaced by whispered negotiations, sharp minds, and high-stakes diplomacy. Picture Jerusalem, that ancient city, its sun-baked stones glowing gold beneath a relentlessly blazing Levantine sun. The air carries the heavy scent of frankincense from distant temples, mingling with the salty tang of the nearby sea. Markets bustle with traders, hawking spices, silks, and secrets, while the call to prayer echoes softly from minarets. Weaving through the narrow, winding alleys, you probably won't survive the labyrinthine twists of medieval politics, the shifting loyalties, and the precarious balance of faith and power that Frederick must navigate to reclaim this sacred city without firing a single arrow. But don't worry, that's exactly why you're here, to unravel this extraordinary tale together. So, before you sink deeper into your chair, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious to see how far across the world we're connecting tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum that soothes your senses. And let's gently ease into tonight's journey. You are born into the intricate and fascinating world of the Hohenstaufen dynasty. Imagine a place where the golden Sicilian sun kisses the lush Mediterranean coastlines, where bustling ports hum with the languages of Latin, Arabic, Greek, and German. Frederick's youth unfolds against a backdrop of cultural mosaic, his earliest memories filled with the vibrant sounds of troubadours, singing tales of chivalry, the intellectual debates of Arab scholars reading ancient manuscripts, and the clang of swords being forged in Norman castles. From an early age, Frederick is a prodigy, fluent in 6 languages. Yes, 6, including the often ignored Arabic, which later becomes a crucial tool in his diplomatic crusade. You picture him as a boy sitting cross-legged in a sunlit courtyard, listening intently to scholars debate philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy, while also mastering the art of warfare and governance. This combination of scholarly curiosity and martial rigor sets Frederick apart from many of his contemporaries, who often lean heavily to one side. You can almost hear the echo of his footsteps through the halls of Palermo's royal palace, marble floors cold beneath his sandals. Tapestries depicting epic battles and sacred stories hanging from the walls. The air carries the scent of jasmine and ink, a sensory reminder that his world is one where power is wielded not just with the sword, but with knowledge and culture. Historians still argue fiercely whether Frederick's defining trait was his intellect or his martial prowess. Some paint him as the philosopher king, a man ahead of his time who sought peace through wisdom. Others emphasize his ruthless determination, his readiness to take the battlefield when words failed. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between, a rare fusion of mind and might. Now here's a quirky tidbit to tuck into your mental satchel. Frederick was reportedly fascinated with exotic animals and collected them during his travels, an early medieval zoo that astonished his court and visitors alike. Imagine the spectacle of rare birds and strange creatures wandering the palace gardens, a living symbol of his far-reaching influence and curiosity. As twilight casts long shadows over the Mediterranean coast and the cicadas begin their evening chorus, you sense the shape of a crusade, unlike any other. This is not a story of brutal sieges or heroic charges, but of delicate negotiations, cultural bridges, and a bold, if controversial, vision of how peace might be won. So settle in as we embark together on a journey through history, through the shimmering dust of desert winds, through the echoes of prayers and proclamations, and into the mind of an emperor who dared to rewrite the rules of crusading forever. You follow Frederick as he navigates the vibrant and cosmopolitan courts of Sicily, a dazzling tapestry where East meets West and cultures intertwine like the threads of an intricate mosaic. The air is thick with the scents of citrus blossoms, exotic spices, and the ink from countless manuscripts. Marble columns rise to vaulted ceilings, painted with gold leaf and azure skies, while the gentle strumming of lutes and the soft chanting of scholars provide an unlikely soundtrack to a kingdom brimming with power and knowledge. Frederick's upbringing is anything but ordinary. From his earliest days, he is immersed in a world where Arab physicians, Norman knights, Byzantine diplomats, and Latin clerics coexist in a delicate dance of politics and culture. You can almost see the young prince seated cross-legged on a mosaic floor, poring over treatises on astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy, his mind absorbing ideas that will shape his unique vision. His Sicilian court isn't just a political center, it's an intellectual crucible, a place where ideas from the Mediterranean's many cultures mingle freely. Here, you witness heated debates between scholars in Arabic and Latin, the fusion of medical knowledge from East and West, and the creation of legal codes, blending Roman law with local customs. Historians still debate how deeply this multicultural environment influenced Frederick's preference for diplomacy over traditional military conquest. Was his embrace of negotiation born from pragmatism, intellectual curiosity, or both? A quirky tidbit to keep you smiling: Frederick was known to host poetic contests where Arab and European poets would compete, weaving verses in different languages. Imagine a medieval rap battle, but with more silk robes and fewer beatboxes. As you wander through the palace gardens, fragrant with jasmine and orange blossoms, you realize that Frederick's crusade will be fought not only on battlefields, but in the realm of ideas and culture, setting the stage for a crusade like no other. You stand within the towering, echoing Cathedral of Aachen, where the air hangs heavy with incense and anticipation. The massive stone pillars rise like ancient sentinels, supporting vaulted ceilings, adorned with delicate frescoes, scenes of saints and kings long past, watching silently as history unfolds again beneath their gaze. It is here, amidst the flickering candlelight and the solemn murmur of Latin prayers, that Frederick II takes the crown of Holy Roman Emperor. The golden circlet, heavy with centuries of symbolism and power, descends slowly upon his head, sealing his destiny as one of Christendom's most formidable rulers. You can almost feel the collective breath of nobles, clergy, and courtiers held tight in the balance between hope and doubt. Frederick is young, far younger than many who preceded him, and his reputation as a scholar and a thinker both intrigues and unsettles the traditionalists. Whispers ripple through the stone halls. Can this emperor, fluent in many tongues and adept in many arts, command the fierce loyalty and fear that once held the sprawling empire together? The tension is palpable. The ritual itself is a spectacle of medieval grandeur, ornate vestments, the shining silver of relics, the solemn chants rising and falling like waves. Yet beneath the pageantry lurks uncertainty. Frederick's intellectual pursuits, astronomy, law, poetry, are as much a part of him as his armored knights and imperial ambitions. This unusual combination makes his reign unpredictable, a mixture of enlightened rule and ruthless pragmatism. Historians still debate the significance of this moment. Was Frederick's coronation a genuine consolidation of imperial power, or merely a ceremonial continuation in a fragmented realm where kingship was more contested than assured. Some argue it was a symbolic act that masked the true political struggles to come. Here's a quirky tidbit to lighten the mood. Frederick's coronation feast reportedly featured spices and delicacies so exotic that many of the traditional nobles were bewildered, unsure whether to enjoy or fear such unfamiliar tastes. Imagine a medieval version of, "What's this weird orange thing?" a citrus fruit that today we take for granted. As the ceremony draws to a close, and the procession moves through the cathedral's heavy wooden doors, you sense this is no ordinary crowning. It is the prelude to a reign that will challenge the very fabric of medieval politics, faith, and war. Frederick's crown is not just a symbol of authority, it is the first link in a chain that will stretch from Sicily to Jerusalem. From courtly halls to desert plains, you feel the weight of history pressing down as you step out into the cool air. The sun setting behind the ancient city walls, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers into the future. Frederick's journey is only beginning, and what follows will redefine what it means to be a crusader. You trudge beside Frederick as he embarks on a crusade unlike any you've known, one where the weapons are words, the battlefield diplomacy, and victory measured not in spilled blood, but in fragile accords. The salty breeze of the Mediterranean brushes your face, carrying whispers of doubt and anticipation alike. Unlike the thunderous marches of armored knights and clashing swords in previous crusades, Frederick's campaign is marked by careful planning, subtle histories, and an unshakable belief that dialogue can achieve what force could not. Imagine the scene: a fleet of ships bobbing in harbors, sails billowing as they prepare to cross restless seas. Nobles and clergy argue quietly over strategy, while Frederick consults envoys, versed in languages and cultures far beyond the European heartland. His vision is audacious, a crusade that relies on negotiation with Sultan al-Kamil, a ruler known for his own pragmatism and strength. This is a clash not only of armies but of minds. Historians argue whether Frederick's approach was a brilliant adaptation to the political realities of his time, or a retreat from the crusading ideals of valor and holy war. Was he a peacemaker, or simply a shrewd politician seizing opportunity? The debate rages on, reflecting the complexity of a man who defies easy categorization. A quirky tidbit lightens the tension. Frederick reportedly refused to wear heavy armor during his diplomatic missions, opting instead for simple robes that confused and sometimes frustrated his more militant followers. It's as if he dressed for a scholar's salon rather than a battlefield, a reflection of his unique blend of intellect and authority. As ships set sail into the unknown, you feel the electric tension of a crusade that might succeed without a single sword drawn. This is the story of a king who dared to rewrite the rules not with fire and steel, but with patience, persistence, and a surprising dose of charisma. You stand on the deck of Frederick's flagship, the vast Mediterranean stretching endlessly beneath a cobalt sky. The sea spray stings your face, mingling with the salty breeze that carries whispers of distant lands and looming challenges. Around you, the hull creaks and ropes strain under the weight of sails as the fleet braces for the long journey ahead. Nobles in elaborate armor shift uneasily, their faces etched with anticipation and perhaps a hint of fear. Sailors call out commands, their voices rising over the rhythmic slap of waves. A chorus that carries you toward a destiny entwined with faith, politics, and diplomacy. Frederick moves among them with quiet confidence, his gaze steady as he consults navigators and captains, poring over charts that promise safe passage, yet hint at hidden dangers. He is no ordinary crusader. His mind is already several moves ahead, strategizing not only for the battles he hopes to avoid, but for the complex negotiations he must master. His multilingual talents allow him to converse with advisors from distant lands, blending cultures and customs even before reaching the Holy Land. The voyage is far from smooth. Storms sweep across the sea with sudden fury, dark clouds roiling, lightning fracturing the sky, and waves threatening to swallow ships whole. You feel the tension coil tight as sailors work tirelessly, adjusting rigging and hauling lines to keep the fleet intact. Amid this chaos, Frederick remains a steady beacon, inspiring calm in those around him. Superstitions and prayers abound. Some whisper that the journey is cursed. Others believe divine favor guides their sails. Frederick, a man of both science and faith, carries with him a collection of small seashells tokens from the eastern shores, thought to bring luck and protection, whether charm or coincidence. The fleet weathers the storms and presses onward. Historians marvel at the logistical achievement of assembling and sustaining such a diverse expedition. Knights, clergy, merchants, and diplomats from across Europe and Sicily, all unified under Frederick's command. They debate how much his leadership and vision influenced the voyage's success, especially considering the fragile alliances and internal tensions that could have unraveled everything. As the Levantine coast finally appears on the horizon, bathed in the golden light of dawn, a hush falls over the fleet. Anticipation and uncertainty mingle in the air. You know that while the journey's dangers were real, the true test lies ahead. Frederick's crusade is about to challenge not just armies, but centuries of entrenched conflict and mistrust. You brace yourself for a crusade unlike any other, where the weapons are words and the battlefield stretches far beyond the walls of any fortress. You step off the ship onto the sun-warmed shores of the Levant, the ancient land alive with history, I hope, and hidden dangers. The air is thick with a mingling sense of spices, fresh bread, and smoke from distant hearths, while the cacophony of markets, prayers, and clattering hooves fills your ears. Jerusalem's golden walls shimmer in the midday sun, standing as silent witnesses to millennia of faith and conflict. Frederick moves with purposeful calm through this complex tapestry of cultures. Unlike the fiery conquerors before him, he is here as a mediator, fluent in the languages and customs of both Christian and Muslim worlds. His court is a blend of Latin clerics, Arab scholars, and local leaders, a mosaic reflecting the diverse souls who call this city home. You see the cautious glances exchanged between envoys, the tentative handshakes, and the wary respect that underpins every interaction. Frederick's reputation precedes him. Some see him as a visionary seeking peace, others as a political gambler testing the limits of power. You sense his awareness of these perceptions and his skillful navigation through them. He is not here to impose, but to persuade, not to march armies, but to build fragile bridges. Historians continue to debate how much Frederick's personal fascination with Arab culture and knowledge shaped his diplomatic approach. Was his multilingualism merely a tool, or did it reflect a genuine respect for the people he encountered? Here's a quirky tidbit to keep in mind. Frederick was fascinated by Arabic poetry and frequently quoted it in his speeches, using verse to soften hearts and open minds. As twilight paints Jerusalem's domes with hues of amber and rose, you feel the palpable tension beneath the surface, a city poised between hope and turmoil, peace and precariousness. Frederick's mission will require more than promises. It will demand patience, cunning, and an unyielding resolve. You realize this crusade will test not just armies, but the very possibility of coexistence in a land sacred to many. You find yourself inside the grand, shadowed halls of negotiation, where Frederick II meets Sultan al-Kamil, two formidable rulers whose destinies intertwine in a delicate, eye-stake dance. The walls around you are draped with rich fabrics, the scent of incense swirling in the air, as courtiers and envoys from vastly different worlds watch in tense silence. The room hums with the unspoken tension of centuries-long conflict. Yet here, words wield more power than swords. Frederick's sharp mind and multilingual fluency allow him to communicate directly with Al-Kamil, bridging gaps that others could not. They exchange gifts, fine silks, intricate jewelry, and rare spices each, a symbol laden with political weight and mutual respect. You watch as they negotiate over maps, territories, and the rights of pilgrims. Their face is a mix of guarded calculation and wary hope. Every phrase is measured, every gesture deliberate. It's a chess game played with human lives and holy cities as the stakes. Historians debate whether these talks were driven by sincere hopes for peace or by pragmatic calculations to delay further conflict. Some see Frederick's diplomacy as visionary. Others view it as a cautious compromise fraught with concessions. A quirky detail Frederick gifted Al-Kamil, a magnificent falcon, symbolizing nobility and alliance, a rare gesture that reportedly softened the Sultan's stance during negotiations. As candlelight flickers and shadows dance across the walls, you feel the fragile possibility that centuries of warfare might finally yield to cautious accord, if only for a moment. You linger in the richly adorned chambers where Frederick and Sultan al-Kamil continue their delicate negotiations. The walls, hung with tapestries woven from silk and gold threads, seem to hold their breath as every word spoken carries the weight of kingdoms. Courtiers stand poised, eyes sharp, reading the subtle cues and shifts in expression between these two masterful diplomats. The air is heavy with the scent of myrrh and rare perfumes, mingling with the quiet rustle of parchment and the soft clinking of jeweled goblets. Gifts of gold, silk, and spices pass hands. Each item, a carefully chosen symbol meant to convey honor, respect, and unspoken expectations. These are not mere tokens, but strategic moves in a complex game where trust is scarce and every concession could tip the balance. Frederick's mind works like a finely tuned instrument, weighing every phrase, every gesture, balancing firmness with grace. You see the Sultan's measured responses, his own advisors whispering counsel from the shadows. The negotiations stretch on, days folding into nights, a test of endurance as much as will board. Historians debate whether these talks represented genuine attempts at peace or were tactical pauses in an ongoing struggle. Was Frederick a peacemaker at heart, or a strategist playing for time? A quirky tidbit: Frederick was known to take breaks by playing chess with his advisors, the game serving both as entertainment and metaphor for the diplomatic maneuvers unfolding. As the treaty slowly takes shape, you realize that sometimes the greatest battles are fought not on fields of blood, but in the quiet, candlelit rooms where words wield more power than swords. The day dawns when Jerusalem's gates swing open not to the thunder of war cries or the clang of armor, but to the quiet, deliberate steps of peace. You stand among a mixed crowd of pilgrims, locals, and soldiers, the air thick with a mixture of disbelief, relief, and cautious hope. Ancient stones, worn by centuries of conflict and devotion, now witness an unprecedented transfer. Jerusalem returns to Christian control without a single arrow loosed or sword drawn. The city, sacred to many faiths, hums softly with the prayers of those who have long awaited this moment. Yet beneath the surface, murmurs of skepticism ripple through crusader ranks. Warriors who expected to carve their victory with steel find themselves grappling with the strange triumph of diplomacy. Frederick's treaty, remarkable for its peaceful terms, unsettles as much as it comforts. Pilgrims are granted safe passage. Muslim inhabitants retain their homes. And trade continues, an uneasy balance that defies simple notions of conquest. Historians remain divided. Some praise this as a triumph of statesmanship and pragmatism. Others view it as a fragile compromise that sowed seeds of future discord. A quirky detail: Frederick celebrated the occasion with a lavish feast blending Eastern and Western culinary traditions, spiced lamb, alongside Italian wines, symbolizing the cultural crossroads at the heart of this new Jerusalem. As the sun sets behind the city's golden domes, you feel the weight of fragile hope resting on ancient stones. A peace as delicate as the city itself, Jerusalem breathes a tentative calm beneath the watchful gaze of Frederick II. You wander through its labyrinthine streets, where pilgrims, traders, and citizens of diverse faiths weave through markets bustling with color and sound. The golden light catches the gleam of polished brass lamps swinging gently in the evening breeze, and the soft murmurs of prayer rise from churches, mosques, and synagogues alike. Frederick governs this mosaic city with a blend of firmness and tact, understanding that peace is more than ink on parchment. It requires daily acts of negotiation and understanding. You see him convening councils where Christian, Muslim, and Jewish leaders voice their concerns and ambitions. Laws are crafted to protect pilgrims while respecting the rights of local inhabitants. An unprecedented balancing act in a land long scarred by conflict. Despite outward appearances of harmony, you sense undercurrents of tension, old rivalries, religious fervor, and political ambitions simmer just below the surface, reminding you that this peace is fragile, maintained by constant vigilance. Historians debate the true effectiveness of Frederick's administration, weighing moments of relative peace against the persistent threats that would soon resurface. A quirky tidbit: Frederick commissioned elaborate gardens within the city walls, lush, shaded retreats filled with fountains and fragrant flowers, offering rare oases of tranquility amid the tumult. As the sun sets behind the iconic domes, casting long shadows over the ancient stones, you grasp the complexity of ruling a city sacred to so many, yet claimed by so few. You watch Frederick navigate the labyrinth of Jerusalem's politics, where faith, power, and survival intertwine like the intricate mosaics decorating the city's ancient walls. His court is a microcosm of the wider world. Latin clergy assert their influence, Muslim leaders guard their communities, and local nobles maneuver for advantage, all under Frederick's steady but watchful eye. Frederick's rule demands a delicate balance. He grants protections to diverse religious communities, while affirming Christian dominion, a precarious dance amid centuries of mistrust. You hear whispered conversations behind carved wooden screens, feel the subtle shifts in alliances, and see the careful diplomacy that keeps tensions from boiling over. Historians debate whether Frederick's administration truly fostered coexistence or merely masked deeper divisions that would later erupt. A quirky detail: Frederick's multilingual court held audiences in Latin, Arabic, and Sicilian, with the emperor himself effortlessly switching between tongues, a linguistic performance that underscored his unique authority. As twilight deepens over the city's golden spires, You sense the fragile peace hangs by the thread of Frederick's diplomatic skill and patience. Frederick's court in Jerusalem becomes a vibrant hub of intellectual exchange, where scholars, poets, and philosophers from across the Christian and Muslim worlds converge. The air buzzes with debate as Arabic manuscripts lie open alongside Latin texts, and the sound of diverse tongues fills the palace halls. You witness spirited discussions on theology, astronomy, law, and medicine fields that Frederick passionately supports, seeking to bridge cultures through knowledge. This intellectual ferment fosters a cultural renaissance where ideas flow freely, despite the underlying tensions of political rivalry and religious difference. Frederick himself engages deeply, not just as a patron, but as a participant, composing poetry, commissioning translations, and encouraging dialogue. Historians argue about the extent to which this unique blending of traditions influenced the later European Renaissance and the development of science. A quirky tidbit: Frederick reportedly organized musical performances blending European instruments with Arabic melodies, enchanting audiences with these cross-cultural harmonies. As you walk through these lively courts of learning, you realize that Frederick's legacy reaches far beyond politics. It's a beacon of cultural fusion amid a fractured world. Beneath the surface of Frederick's cultural and diplomatic achievements, tensions quietly simmer. You observe murmurs in the marketplace, whispers among knights and clergy, and the guarded glances exchanged in council chambers. Not everyone welcomes this new era of peace brokered through negotiation rather than conquest. Some crusaders resent the absence of battle, feeling that Frederick's peaceful approach undermines the ideals for which they had sacrificed so much. Meanwhile, local factions, wary of imperial rule, plot in shadows, testing the fragile bonds holding Jerusalem together. Frederick, aware of these undercurrents, moves cautiously. His court hosts theatrical performances, blending Christian and Muslim traditions, an attempt to foster understanding through art. Yet, even these efforts sometimes ignite controversy. Historians debate how much these simmering tensions contributed to the eventual breakdown of Frederick's agreements and the return to conflict. A quirky tidbit: Frederick was known to sponsor festivals where jousting knights and Arab horsemen competed side by side, a spectacle of unity amid division. As dusk falls, you feel the delicate peace hanging by a thread, its fate uncertain, in a city long shaped by strife. The day comes when Frederick prepares to depart Jerusalem, his mission achieved, but the future uncertain. Farewell ceremonies unfold with a mixture of gratitude and guarded skepticism. You see pilgrims quietly praying, local leaders exchanging cautious handshakes, and soldiers standing vigilant, their expressions unreadable. The city remains a mosaic of faiths and loyalties. Its peace, a tentative pact, rather than a settled truth. Frederick's departure leaves a void, a power vacuum filled with hopes, fears, and the ever-present possibility of conflict. Historians debate whether his diplomatic crusade set a lasting precedent for peace or merely delayed inevitable struggles. A quirky detail: before leaving, Frederick gifted local artisans rare manuscripts and musical instruments, symbols of cultural exchange and goodwill. As ships slip away from the harbor, you reflect on a crusade won not with blood, but with brilliance and boldness. Back in Europe, Frederick confronts a host of challenges that threaten to undo his hard-won gains. You see the courts of Sicily and the Holy Roman Empire buzzing with intrigue as nobles jostle for power and the papacy watches with suspicion. His absence from the continent emboldens rivals and stokes unrest. You witness Frederick navigating these treacherous waters with a blend of shrewd diplomacy and, when necessary, decisive military action. Yet the weight of distant politics presses heavily upon him. Historians debate whether his crusading diplomacy strengthened or weakened his authority at home. A quirky tidbit: Frederick was known to wear simple clothes during negotiations to appear approachable, a tactic that sometimes unnerved more traditional nobles. As you follow these tangled intrigues, if you realize ruling an empire is as challenging as reclaiming Jerusalem, if not more so, Frederick weaves a complex web of alliances through marriage and diplomacy, understanding that securing his empire requires more than conquest. Lavish banquets bring together nobles from across Europe, their conversations rich with promises, rivalries, and schemes. His marriage alliances are calculated moves, designed to bind powerful families and stabilize fractious regions. Yet, personal sacrifices and betrayals weave through these unions, reminding you that power is a double-edged sword. Historians debate the long-term efficacy of these alliances in maintaining Frederick's fragile empire. A quirky tidbit: Frederick's court was famous for blending European and Arab cultural traditions, evident in the music, cuisine, and fashion showcased at celebrations. As you navigate these grand halls, you feel the high stakes of diplomacy and family politics in medieval rule. You find yourself immersed in the intellectual heart of Frederick's reign, where court scholars debate theology, astronomy, law, and the arts beneath high, arched ceilings. The murmur of lively discussion mingles with the scratch of quills on parchment and the rustling of richly embroidered robes. Frederick himself is not a distant monarch, but an engaged participant, eagerly exchanging ideas with Arab, Latin, and Byzantine thinkers. His curiosity fuels a cultural renaissance, a rare flowering of knowledge amid the turbulence of the Crusades and political upheaval. Historians debate how much this vibrant intellectual life shaped Frederick's policies and influenced later European Enlightenment. A quirky detail: Frederick was reputed to compose poetry in multiple languages, blending personal reflection with scholarly themes. As you stroll through these halls of learning, you sense that Frederick's legacy will endure far beyond battlefields. You step onto the battlefield scenes across Italy and Germany, where Frederick's military campaigns test the limits of his authority. The clamor of steel on steel fills the air. Horses snort and rear, and banners flutter amid clouds of dust and smoke. Each campaign is a high-stakes gamble, as Frederick confronts rebellious nobles, rival factions, and foreign invaders intent on challenging his rule. Despite occasional setbacks, you see Frederick's blend of strategic insight and raw determination holding his territories together. His commanders employ a mix of traditional heavy cavalry charges and emerging tactical innovations, reflecting the transitional nature of medieval warfare. Historians debate the overall effectiveness of these campaigns, weighing Frederick's ability to maintain control against the lasting instability they sometimes provoked. A quirky detail: Frederick rode a horse named Sultan, a gift from the East, symbolizing his unique blend of cultures and allegiances. As you witness the chaos and courage of these battles, you grasp the relentless pressures shaping Frederick's reign on multiple fronts. You stand amid the escalating conflict between Frederick and Pope Gregory IX, where the struggle for spiritual and temporal supremacy shakes the foundations of Christendom. The Pope's excommunication hangs over Frederick like a dark cloud, threatening to sever his legitimacy and isolate him politically. Secret councils convene on a flickering candlelight, where Frederick and his allies plot their responses. While propaganda campaigns wage war in churches and marketplaces, loyalties fracture as nobles, and clergy choose sides, some rallying behind the emperor's vision, others clinging to papal authority. Historians debate whether this schism weakened Frederick's empire irreparably or demonstrated his formidable resilience against ecclesiastical power. A quirky tidbit: Frederick was rumored to hold clandestine midnight meetings in moonlit courtyards, using coded signals to coordinate with his supporters. As tensions spiral, you feel the profound intertwining of faith and politics that defined medieval rule. You observe Frederick's grand vision for a unified empire, a realm where law, culture, and faith intertwine under his steady hand. Courts across Sicily, Germany, and Italy hum with activity as new legal codes are drafted. Scholars debate governance, and artists flourish under his patronage. His reforms aim to centralize authority, curtail the power of unruly nobles, and foster a renaissance of learning and artistic expression. Frederick dreams of an empire that blends the legacy of Rome with the vibrant cultures of the Mediterranean. Historians debate how much his vision influenced the shape of later European nation-states, crediting him as a pioneer of centralized governance. A quirky detail: Frederick's court staged lavish festivals that blended medieval pageantry with classical themes, reflecting his love of spectacle and history. As you stroll these magnificent halls and gardens, you sense the breadth of his ambitions, reaching far beyond conquest and diplomacy. You find Frederick navigating the treacherous waters of court intrigue, where nobles whisper behind silk curtains and alliances shift like desert sands. The emperor's sharp intellect and quick wit are as vital as his sword in maintaining power. You witness banquets where smiles hide daggers, and meetings where loyalty is bartered like coin. Frederick uses every tool at his disposal: chess games with trusted advisors that mirror realpolitik, carefully timed favors, and strategic marriages to keep his fractious empire intact. Historians debate how much these internal power plays affected the empire's long-term stability. A quirky tidbit: Frederick was known to challenge his advisors to chess matches that often ended with lessons on governance rather than checkmate. As the court's delicate balance teeters, you understand the subtle art of ruling as well as fighting. The fires of rebellion flicker and flare as Frederick faces resistance in Italy's patchwork of city-states and noble domains. You witness sieges laid to stone castles, banners torn and reforged, and the gritty determination of soldiers fighting for land and honor. Frederick's response blends military might with negotiation, offering pardons here, swift justice there, an ever-adapting strategy against an unpredictable foe. The rugged hills echo with the clash of swords and the cries of war. Historians debate whether these conflicts strengthened Frederick's grip or drained his resources and focus. A quirky detail: Frederick was said to have penned stirring battle hymns that inspired his troops before combat, merging culture and courage. Amid smoke and steel, you sense the relentless challenges testing the emperor's resilience. The clash between emperor and pope intensifies as Frederick faces excommunication, a spiritual weapon wielded to undermine his authority. You stand amid a Europe divided, loyalists rallying behind the papacy, others steadfast in their allegiance to Frederick's cause. You witness sermons denouncing the emperor, letters exchanged in veiled threats, and clandestine meetings plotting the empire's future. The fabric of Christendom strains under the weight of this schism. Historians debate whether this rift heralded the decline of imperial power or showcased Frederick's indomitable spirit. A quirky detail: Frederick secretly wore a ring, engraved with both imperial and papal symbols, a personal testament to his complex identity. As faith and power collide, You grasp the profound tensions that shaped medieval Europe. You enter the vibrant cultural renaissance, flourishing under Frederick's patronage, a realm where illuminated manuscripts glow with gold leaf, and scholars debate beneath frescoed ceilings. The air is alive with the scent of ink, parchment, and exotic spices from distant lands. Frederick's court becomes a beacon of learning, embracing knowledge from the east and west. You witness mathematicians exploring new theories, poets crafting verses in multiple languages, and artists blending styles to create unique masterpieces. Historians debate how much this flourishing influenced the wider European Renaissance. A quirky detail, Frederick composed music and poetry himself, weaving together Arabic melodies with European rhythms. As you wander these halls of light and shadow, you sense the enduring power of culture amid political turbulence. You watch as years weigh heavily on Frederick, the toll of endless campaigns, political battles, and the burdens of empire leaving their mark. His once vigorous frame shows signs of fatigue, his gaze sometimes distant as he contemplates the future. Despite declining health, Frederick remains deeply engaged, guiding advisors, planning reforms, and nurturing his legacy. His resolve to shape history does not wane even as his strength fades. Historians debate how much his failing health influenced the empire's stability and the succession struggles that followed. A poignant detail, Frederick spent his final days surrounded by treasured books and trusted confidants, finding solace in knowledge and companionship. As twilight deepens, you feel the fragility of human power against the relentless march of time. You enter the quiet chambers where Frederick spends his final days, a room filled with the soft flicker of candlelight, the scent of aged parchment, and the gentle murmur of prayers. Surrounded by loyal companions, he reflects on a life that has reshaped empires and challenged centuries of tradition. His thoughts often return to Jerusalem, the city he reclaimed not through war, but through daring diplomacy and the delicate peace he forged amid a landscape scarred by conflict. He contemplates the legacy he will leave behind, knowing history's judgment will be as complex as his reign. Historians debate whether his death marked the end of an era or the beginning of profound transformations within the empire. A touching detail, Frederick requested a simple wooden cross be placed beside his bed, symbolizing humility amid grandeur. As night falls softly, you prepare to witness the closing chapter of a ruler whose life was as you stand witness to the empire's collective mourning, where black banners flutter mournfully across castles and cathedrals, and monks chant solemn requiems in stone cloisters. Frederick's death leaves a gaping void, his heirs struggling to grasp the vast and complex legacy he left behind. Courts across Europe buzz with whispers, as nobles jockey for influence amid the fragile balance of power. The very fabric of the empire trembles, uncertain whether Frederick's vision will endure or unravel. Historians debate how effectively Frederick's successors maintained his ambitions or succumbed to internal strife. A curious tidbit: local legends say Frederick's spirit still lingers in his Sicilian palace, guarding secrets and wisdom. As the empire navigates this transition, you sense the fragile interplay between history and memory, shaping the future. You find yourself amid the shifting tides of historical interpretation, where Frederick's legacy is re-examined through the lenses of changing eras. Chronicles, biographies, and scholarly debates paint him alternately as enlightened ruler, ruthless autocrat, visionary peacemaker, or flawed human. His court's cultural renaissance is celebrated as a precursor to Europe's awakening, while his political struggles foreshadow the enduring tensions between church and state. Historians continue to debate the meaning and impact of his reign, revealing as much about their own times as about Frederick himself. A quirky detail in the Renaissance. Artists depicted Frederick with a lion's mane, symbolizing both strength and wisdom. As perspective se vuelve, you realize that history is a living dialogue, forever reshaped by those who tell its stories. You stand at the crossroads of legend and history, where Frederick's story transforms into myth, song, and art. Bards sing of his grandeur, painters capture his regal bearing, and playwrights dramatize his struggles. His image morphs through the ages, sometimes a saintly emperor, sometimes a defiant heretic. These cultural echoes reveal as much about the societies that remember him as about the man himself. Folktales blend fact with fantasy, casting Frederick as a symbol of wisdom, power, or tragedy. Historians debate how such portrayals influence collective memory and understanding of the past. A quirky tidbit: medieval troubadours often depicted Frederick as a mystical figure with supernatural insight, adding layers of myth to his legacy. As stories unfold and evolve, you sense the enduring power of narrative in shaping history. As the sun sets on Frederick's reign, you reflect on a legacy that transcends the confines of his time. His name is spoken with reverence and debate, a symbol of both brilliance and complexity. His empire, a grand vision of unity, is now a series of fragments, but his ideals of enlightened rule, of bridging cultures, kind of peace through diplomacy, resonate across centuries. The Holy Roman Empire he built might have crumbled under the weight of internal strife, but the cultural and intellectual blossoming he nurtured left an indelible mark on Europe. Jerusalem, though briefly under his control, remembers the peace he brokered, a testament to his ability to achieve what others thought impossible. Historians and storytellers continue to wrestle with Frederick's legacy, but one thing is clear: his story, like the cities he built and the peace he sought, is never easily forgotten. It ripples through time, shaping ideas and inspiring leaders, thinkers, and dreamers. A final, poetic tidbit: Frederick is said to have been buried with a single book of poetry from his court, a symbol of his devotion to both the mind and the sword. A final reminder that the greatest power lies not in force, but in understanding. As you close your eyes and let the night carry you into rest, you carry with you the enduring lessons of Frederick II, a ruler who taught that even in the harshest of times, there is room for wisdom, diplomacy, and, just perhaps, peace. Good night, and sweet dreams.